Go ahead and get started. Thank you to everybody who's on the call today. My name is Scott Gilbert. I'm the Executive Director of CAI West Florida Chapter. We're one of 8 chapters in the state of Florida, and we're proud to say we are the largest chapter. We are leading the charge in future practices and collaboration. All 8 chapters, and all chapters of CAI look to accomplish the same goals. So why not work together a little bit more as far as spreading information and educational opportunities such as today. But I really just want to start today's program, open it up to our 2 speakers today. We're happy to have Leslie Alvarez and Bill Overton, who have generously donating their time to lead today's discussion on burnout battle, especially for community association managers. So I'm going to shut up and open it up to our 2 presenters today. I will be in the chat in case anybody wants to ask any questions. We'd ask you to please stay on mute for the duration. And if you do have a question, put it in the chat. We'll try and answer it in real time. Otherwise, we'll open it up a little bit later on as we get to the conclusion of today's program. So thank you. Leslie, Bill, take it away.
Hello, everybody. So I'm going to get started by just sharing our screen here so that you all can follow along with us. We are here today to talk about burnout battle, supporting community managers' mental health. And to give you guys, we're going to give ourselves our introduction, but to give you guys a little idea of how, it's nothing that any of us have been able to avoid at some point in our career. We've all experienced it. And Bill and I have literally helped to write the book. So let's introduce ourselves, Bill.
You first.
Me first? Okay. You were listed first, but okay, I guess we'll go in alphabetical.
That was a mistake on my part.
Is it gonna be what is it? Not age over beauty, beauty over age?
Both.
So Bill and I are good buddies. We actually serve on the managers representation group together for CAI International. I am an industry veteran of 27 years, almost 28 years this coming January in the industry. I started at the age of 19 as a portfolio manager and managed up to 28 properties in that portfolio setting. Then I transitioned as my kids got older into on-site management and with a focus on large scales, and then went into high rise. And now I actually own my own management firm in West Palm Beach, Community ACE. So, I've been in the business, I've circled around, I've done all the big players, I've done all the different roles. I know what it's like to be in the trenches on a regular basis, and it never ends. We all know that revolving door, it never ends. So that's a little bit about me. Bill?
Thanks, Leslie. Yeah, I've been involved in CAI for a while. I was a chapter president once long ago of a small chapter in Southern Arizona, and been on the faculty and the national board. As Leslie said, the managers committee together with people, and been a portfolio manager and a management company vice president and on-site and an on-site for management company. You hang around long enough and you kind of see all the permutations of what we do. And I was always a guy that took the challenging job, the challenging community, kind of settled down the broken board, the broken community. And my personal management journey got me to a community that was not fixable. The way things were going politically, operationally, they wanted to do too many things at one time, in addition to a $15 million multi-service place. And there were ethical and legal things going on that I couldn't abide. And I had a burnout bottom. So usually, you sell these things like, hey, I won all these awards and, I did all this stuff. And there's some truth to that. But the reason I'm qualified to talk about this today is that I hit a burnout bottom you would not believe. I mean, literally a 120-day FMLA, leave of absence from work. It was so bad. And a lot of thought in changing my lifestyle to lower stress, including at my management desk. So my name is Bill, and I have a mental illness. I have high performing depression and anxiety. Now, not everybody that has burnout has a mental illness, but we're going to talk about all of that from a perspective to help you recognize what's going on, avoid it, and do better for yourself and your employees.
Hey, Bill, I heard, I saw a meme, I'm obsessed with memes. If you haven't figured that out on Facebook, I love them. And I saw one the other day that said, if you are in your mid 40s to 50s and in the 1980s, you were in the gifted and talented program, you are now officially diagnosed with high performing anxiety. Like that's what it was all along, but we didn't even realize it, because you just perform so well under pressure, and then eventually, obviously, anything that happens under pressure, you turn into a diamond or something. It cracks at some point, right? And so yeah, I think this industry attracts that personality.
Yes, ma'am, it does. And one of the reasons I have Mount Everest up behind me, looks so pretty with the sunset and all that. But Mount Everest is a attractive nuisance to egomaniacs that think they can do anything. And there's a lot of dead bodies, for every motivated individual, every motivated dead body up on Mount Everest was once a highly motivated individual. And my point is that there are limits. I did not run my life in my management career like there were limits. And I have found there are limits to the human condition. And what I really found is that once I started researching this and talking to people about it, this is its own epidemic, and we're going to get into that. And it happens to a lot of people. It happens to athletes, entertainers, newscasters, Miss America. These are all people that everybody thought were super happy and successful and went out and blew their brains out one day because they didn't know how to be in retirement, or they didn't know how to overcome this next challenge. They just hit a wall. And, when I do these seminars, if there's 100 people in the room, 30 people are dealing with some sort of depression and anxiety at any given moment. And a couple of people talk to me and come out and say, thank you for mentioning suicide. We've had that happen in our office. It's just that these are taboo topics that really shouldn't be taboo. And Leslie and I and a group of other people, all the way up to Melissa Ramsey, our president, and Don Bauman, are really trying to lower the stigma on some of this stuff and, make it more comfortable to talk about these issues in the workplace. So I think that's enough of an intro, Leslie. Why don't you take us through some of the slides and let's get going?
So I think this was the laying of the foundation, right? I think we kind of already covered that. So let's move on in here to the next one. So what is mental health? Are you okay? Like we said, those high performers, those people that are constantly focused on the next item, the to-do list, the task masters, all of those people, your mental health is imperative to your success with that. And it really, sometimes nobody bothers to ask you if you're okay. It's just, here you are. And you make that assumption that, if you're taking and checking items off your list every day, then you're good, right? And sometimes that's just not true. A little bit about my story too, Bill, is, I suffered two very traumatic situations within a couple of years. In 2018, 2019, my son was a gun violence survivor. And that sent me through a whole tailspin of PTSD. I couldn't stop my heart from racing. It was just a never ending heart racing. And we'll talk a little bit more about that throughout the day. And then, or this next hour. And then I also then in 2022 lost the man that I was seeing suddenly in a car accident, which just sent me through a second tailspin. Both of those are personal, not so much business related instances, but they obviously transcribed into the business side of my mental health and what I was capable of handling. And so mental health is just as important as your physical health, because you just can't possibly be able to perform without it.
Well, and Leslie, one of the things, there's an article that these folks could research if they want. Burnout or self-care is not the answer to burnout. It's a PhD level paper, really long. But on top of it, our culture has always put resilience on the employee. Suck it up. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. If Joe burns out, we'll just put somebody else in his chair. And a lot of Fortune 100 companies actually manage that way. You know, they're
Well,
looking for
you're taught that you're replaceable, right? I mean, it's you're easily replaceable. So having showing weakness is not good in the business world.
It's also survival of the fittest in a different sense of everyone's climbing the ladder. So by the time you get up to the C-suite in some of these Fortune 100 companies, there have been a lot of battles won and lost, let's just say, over the years. And, you know, a lot of CEOs leave under questionable circumstances. We see it all the time. A lot of times it's about sex or something. But a lot of that is stress related, burnout related, and it happens a lot. It happens to athletes. The more I talk about this, and this is the high performing style. We're not even talking about our more typical definition of depression yet, with the quiet person that hides it from everybody and just pulls their cover up over their head. You know, our industry, if you look at our workforce, you know, we're like 70-something% women, that you don't know what everybody's going through. Are their kids coming back home because they can't make a living? Are they managing a portfolio that's crazy? Are they taking care of their aging parents? It's kind of inappropriate for a guy to talk about menopause, but all these things happen in the workplace. And Leslie, you know, we look at our employees like Eli Whitney, interchangeable parts, you know, and we're going to talk about this, but mental wellness in the workplace is actually some low-hanging fruit for productivity. We'll get that in a minute, but it is an individual journey. What works for me doesn't necessarily work for Leslie. What happens to me doesn't necessarily apply directly to Leslie, but what does apply is if Leslie is losing it, which she never does, but hypothetically, if Leslie was losing it, she can call me and say, Bill, I'm losing it. Can we talk? And there's no stigma attached to that. So, you know, what we're really trying to do, be a little bit educational, but we also want this conversation to be more comfortable amongst all of us in the workplace.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, your life and what you're dealing with, like you said, you don't know kids moving in, kids moving out, parents taking care of your parents. All of those things all play into where we're at in our life and that journey that we're facing. And you just don't know where somebody's at, because not everybody shares it and not everybody's comfortable sharing it. And that's okay. But we need to be able to lean on each other to be able to have somebody to be able to help us through that path. So why do we care? Why is this important?
I think it's important. I started out with an article sharing my story, just hoping I could help other managers. And also it's part of my recovery. I counsel people in balance and mental wellness in the workplace, which is really pretty humorous. I was a workaholic my whole career, so I guess that qualifies me, but there's a huge human cost in suicide and quality of life and all kinds of things. But one of the things that I want to get people's attention with, because we're all concerned with profit and bottom line. Leslie's running a management company. Does she add another head, or does she offshore? Does she use AI? Whatever. We're never going to get away from the human component of what we do. but we're looking at all these other things. And if we could go to the next slide, Leslie, you know, one of the things that I freaked out about in a good way when I started researching this is that I found out that this was its own epidemic, bigger than COVID, by the way, and lost productivity. We'll get to that in a second. But Gallup and Deloitte, huge consulting firms, are out there studying depression, anxiety, underperformance in the workplace because of the effect it has on productivity and profitability. Until CEOs and managers understand that managing mental health will impact your bottom line positively, I don't know that we're going to have huge institutional changes. This is something that is going to take a while. The first study, this is from Gallup. The majority of the world's employees are quiet quitting, and they update this every year. This is a couple of years old. 23% are thriving at work. I would say right now I'm thriving at work. I'm having a great time. I'm in the 23%. 59% are quiet quitting. And what that means is they're really not engaged and they're not as functional as they could be. And another 18% are just showing up and causing trouble. And in California, you can't fire anybody. So, you know, you've got all this stuff disrupting your workplace. 51% of currently employed workers said they are watching for or actively seeking a new job. And by the way, this isn't just workers like the rank and file, this is executives in the E-suite as well. And if you look at the daily stress graph from 2009 to now, clearly employees are feeling more stressed out over time. Now, everything needs to have a dollar value. You know, a tornado runs through town, they have to estimate the dollar value of damage. So Gallup estimates that $9 trillion of worldwide gross domestic product is lost because of quiet quitting and loud quitting, and this 51% factor of people wanting a new job. 9 trillion, that's 9% of lost GDP. COVID, over 2 years, lost $8.5 trillion of worldwide gross domestic product. So COVID had half the impact on GDP that mental unwellness in the workplace has on our worldwide productivity. This is an epidemic, a pandemic, bigger even financially than COVID. If we go to the next slide, you know, you'll see some graphs. The light green is employees, this darker greenish blue is C-suite, but it's easy to read left to right: exhausted, stressed, overwhelmed, lonely, depressed. And by the way, they're rating themselves as depressed. When I went to my doctor for a physical, because I knew my blood pressure was high and I'd gained weight, he asked me a bunch of questions and I didn't think I was depressed. And he told me I was, and I laughed at him. And so these are people that are diagnosing themselves as depressed. I was resisting that diagnosis. And, you know, quite frankly, I was wound tight enough that I was pretty close to a 72-hour psych commitment. I was just that wound up. But these are across the board employee statistics. So if you own a management company, a third of your executives are exhausted, 41% stressed, 40% overwhelmed, 30% lonely, 26% depressed, self-diagnosing themselves as depressed. Employees are at a higher level. Next slide, please. And we'll see from this line graph, it's a little tough to read, but again, look at what happens to the C-suite when you talk about having enough time for friends and family, getting 7 hours of sleep, taking micro breaks. This is a worldwide study by Deloitte now. So guys, this isn't just a Bill problem or a Leslie problem. It's not just a United States problem. This is something that has evolved over time. worldwide that every business is facing. And, I'll close with this. I listened to a Marine podcast with my daughter, who's a captain in the Marine Corps, and the colonel that was given the podcast could have been a Fortune 100 executive in any company. And one of the things he said stuck out to me. He says, we're in an all-out war for talent with young people these days that don't really want to join the military or be a Marine or be a Marine Corps captain. How do we recruit them? How do we retain them? And I would say the same thing applies to us. Leslie is expanding a company, and I think she would tell you that hiring and keeping good people in a growing company is a challenge. And wellness in the workplace is going to be key to younger employees, number one. And number two, for boomers like me, young managers are better at maximizing wellness for their employees than boomers are, because we didn't think it was that important. So on top of it, boomer owners, founders, managers, you're going to be outcompeted in this arena by younger managers going forward if we don't get caught up on it. Leslie, I think you're up.
So, I one of the things that I learned through my experiences, obviously, the first situation that I experienced in 2019 was a high level of PTSD, anxiety. I felt like I was constantly waiting for another phone call. Because when I received that phone call, telling me that my son was hospitalized, it was one of those things where my assistant had to shove a chair under me to keep me from falling to the floor. And when coming from that experience, trying to stop the heart racing, trying to stop the panic attack. I was living in a non-stop panic attack for probably about 8 months. And I had a job. It was a newer position. I felt obligated. I was a GM. I had 100+ employees. And I really learned that I had to walk away and say at the end of the day, okay, this is enough. I've got to go do what I need to do for my family, right? Because what I experienced in that instance was a group of clients who had no empathy for me beyond the "I'm so sorry to hear that this happened to you. Now where are our financials?" Right? Kind of conversation. And so what I learned was that I had no choice but to put myself first, because they were not going to put me first. And if I didn't do it for myself, nobody would. Similarly, when Bill passed away in 2022, the day,
Not this Bill, not this
yeah, not
Bill.
that Bill,
I
sorry,
have not
different
come
Bill.
back from the dead.
Yeah. When he passed away, the funeral was on a Friday. And on Monday morning, I got a text message from my boss saying, "Just checking to make sure you're back at it after a tough day." And again, I was reminded again that if I don't have myself and my own best interests at heart, nobody else is going to, because fundamentally, like you said, Bill, those baby boomer corporate policies that have been in place for so long every company says they take care of their employees, but you learn very quickly that they have to be more focused on their own survival, the company's survival. They are focused on the numbers, and the only way you're going to get your personal mental health taken care of is if you are your own advocate, and you put yourself first. So when I mentioned earlier, Bill and I actually collaborated along with how many other people on the book? How many?
Oh, I don't know. I think we ended up with 20 or 25 essays in there from different
Yeah.
perspectives.
So we have a book that's been published by CAI that literally takes executives across the US who have all battled this at one point or another, and basically all learned the same lesson, that we had to put ourselves first at some point, and we had to otherwise nobody else was going to, and collaborated on these lessons, and put together this managing mental health book that's published by CAI. It's available in the online bookstore, and you hear these real life stories of each one of us, and you can't help but relate all the way with everybody. And everybody's either been self-managed or worked for a management company, multiple different spreads of positions, whether you were a manager, an executive, an attorney, a vendor in the business. We've got a little bit of everybody in there. This is a tough business, and we have to work well, in focusing and supporting each other with our wellness. The world is chaotic. It's not any better now after the pandemic. It's only gotten worse. Everybody agrees that. And so we really have to look at how we want to navigate this world as an individual. How do we want to be the setup for being the right leader to set our team up for success? Like you said, I'm scaling a company, and we are regularly overloaded. And I have members of my team on the call right now. They can tell you we are regularly overloaded, because it's not quite enough work or quite enough money for the next hire. And we all have to step it up just a little bit longer. And that's tough. It's a tough place to be as a business owner that values mental health and values work-life balance for employees. I don't just talk it, I preach it. I try to exude it and practice it myself. But how we choose to navigate as both an individual for our personal life, but then also how we put that forward in the leadership roles that we all sit in, is super important. So,
We'll go through this real quick. Burnout's a funny thing. I want to be clear. There's a spectrum of 0% stress, you're the Dalai Lama, to your head's exploding with stress. And I talk about suicide a lot because it is the natural final thought of someone with huge anxiety burnout, and it happens a ton. It's happened in my family. So that's the spectrum. And you can be anywhere on the spectrum with stress and burnout. Granted, this is a stressful industry because people want things now, and they agitate, and yes, doers gravitate to this. But you can get worn out like I did. I mean, fatigue set in. I was cynical, certainly. I don't know about inefficiency. I definitely low morale. And if you're a true high performer, your answer is to drink more coffee, turn the music up louder, work more hours, get shit done. Rinse, wash, repeat. And that doesn't lower the stress level. It just lets the hole get bigger for you to stuff more achievements in. Has anybody here ever had the best board meeting of their life or won an award, and the next morning you felt completely empty? You too are a candidate for burnout, if that's the case. And it's also normal in our industry. Write an article, win an award, get up on the stage, make a presentation. And all these things in CAI have helped me become a better manager, a better speaker, no doubt. But at the same time, I was not aware that even that is an addiction, and it's a way to try and answer that feeling inside. Am I enough? Am I doing enough? Am I accomplishing enough? Here's my resume. I had a boss once tell me in a board meeting to stop hitting the board over the head with my resume. But it's us. High performers thrive in this business, but there are limits, is the whole point of what we're trying to say.
I agree with you completely. This is definitely I've seen this in different teammates. You know, you feel it a little bit in yourself. You definitely hit the cynicism level a lot. I was at the ACAM CEO last week, and I think that was last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. I can't remember. It's been so long. I've slept since then, and I'm a high performer that's putting in a lot of hours right now. You know, yeah, I'm a candidate for all three of these. But one of the things we talked about at the ACAM group was the cynicism that so much of us have after years and years of being in this industry, and all that actually is doing is making our industry that much more negative, because we are negative speakers about our own industry as opposed to speaking well of it. And it's one of those, I feel like, it's you speak positive, you receive positive. You speak negative, then you just seem to attract more negative there. That's a huge thing there. I see a lot of that in many of our managers and industry veterans that have become highly I can't even
Cynical.
cynical, thank you. Highly cynical. And the reality of it is they are burned out. And it's time to make some changes in their life or career, because they've reached that level now.
Well, and we're going to talk about some of this in a minute, but at the end of the day, meaning matters. This has to mean something. I'm going to guess I'm the oldest or one of the oldest on this podcast. When I went to my first CAI,
Not a podcast, it's a Zoom, Bill.
say whatever. Am I hashtagging right? Am I hashtagging right now, Leslie? My first speaker I ever attended a deal on, I thought I was sentenced to life in prison. It was the only job I could find, being an HOA manager. It was actually snowing in Tucson, Arizona on a gray Saturday morning, and I had to drive across town to this seminar. And crazy Larry Pothash is standing on tables, stomping his feet, telling me I'm in the greatest industry that ever existed, because if I can make a 1% difference in property values with good management, he did this whole math calculation that I could impact property values by $1 billion in my community. And that gave me something to hang on to when I was getting yelled at. I'm protecting their property value. We also talk about quality of life. We talk about helping people be active in their neighborhoods and on their boards. So underlying all of this, yeah, we need psychological safety with our boss. Anybody here ever had an angry boss? I bet everybody can raise their hand. Yeah.
I've been an angry boss.
And anger doesn't work in motivating people long term. It just doesn't. Trusting the boss, availability. A lot of this is modeling your own wellness. I have an assistant right now that shares some of my conditions, and we're very in tune with each other. And there are times that we work from home and we complement each other to make sure that there is psychological safety in the office. I had to fire an owner from coming to the office because he was not a psychologically safe individual. He was scary. He ended up suing me in a preemptive lawsuit for harassment when he was harassing us. And you know what? We went through 2 years of that and won. The board backed me up. It's possible.
As a leader and with my team over the years, one of the things, because I am that same proverbial get it done. I don't let grass grow. I write in my book that one of my parenting strategies and most famous parenting phrase that I would tell my kids was "suck it up, buttercup." Like, let's go. We don't got time for this. Let's go. And so I because I am that personality myself, but I still struggle with my own mental health. I try to always open the door, and it's a delicate balance as the employer, to allow people to vent to you, versus need your support or your backup. So what I try to do with my team is I try to say, if you just need to vent, if something's happening and you're frustrated, the board is driving you crazy, this resident is driving you crazy, just you need to vent. You need to open the conversation with me at the very beginning and say, I don't need you to take action. I simply need to get this off my chest with somebody that understands. Because oftentimes our partners at home, our family members, they don't really understand our business. I remember my second husband was a UPS driver, and he could not understand how I would come home exhausted every day and not want to cook, right? Because he was like, but you've been in AC sitting at a desk all day long. Like, because he's driving a UPS truck, his job is more exhausting than mine. Some people are not supported at home by partners or family members that understand the intense pressure that we're dealing with here in this industry. And so sometimes you need to talk to a colleague or your superior to be able to just vent. And you don't really need anybody to take action. You just need to get it off your chest. And so as the leader, I like to open that door and say, if you're calling me to vent, you're calling me to vent. Now, if you're calling me to tell me that this board member is abusive and I need to intervene to be able to stand and say, we're not going to treat my staff that way, then you need to tell me that that's why you're calling me so that I can put which hat on, right? Because I need to build a case. I need to, handle it politically, accurately, all of that documentation. So personally, to be a supportive leader, that's my philosophy in both providing that safety, that trust, and that availability, is letting them tell me sometimes what they need. And then sometimes, even if they think they just need to vent, sometimes in the midst of the conversation, I learn that there is a workplace situation that I need to address. And I'm not scared to address it. And I think that that's something in our industry that many leaders struggle with in a management company owners or executives, because they're so fearful of antagonizing or losing an account that they don't hold the client accountable. And so I hear that a lot from managers, that they don't feel supported because nobody holds the account accountable for the bad behavior of either the board members or the residents.
Well, and there's a dynamic in our industry too, that as a large scale manager, I need to keep my eye on the ball, that 70 something, 80% of our industry is portfolio management. And growing more and more with management companies. I mean, my hat's off to Leslie right now, starting a management company in this day and time where I work for a huge company that's gobbling up other companies constantly, and there's 3 or 4 of those happening around out there. The sad truth in some of these situations even is that managers are lost leaders for profitability for some of these companies. And I know that's a frustration of mine at times. Now, what I've done to get my mind around some of these things is meaning matters. If I take care of my employees and they're happy coming to work and they understand that we're protecting property values and giving our owners an opportunity to live a lifestyle that they want, safe and secure, we're doing a good job at that level. I need to get my mind around what my management company's doing, how I can make them profitable, whether I would run my management company or not. I need to figure out where the pressure points are and manage. Just like I get a new president every year, I have a management company to keep happy. I happen to get a lot of meaning out of my work in CAI. I don't get a whole lot of meaning out of writing trash can violation letters. I do get a lot of meaning out of working with Leslie on committees and on the board. I was a big supporter of Leslie being a board member, and I have high hopes for her in the future as a leader of our institute. I love doing breakout sessions. I love writing articles. And if you want to really dig into meaning, that is a great way for you to do it with your boss, with your local chapter, with CAI National. The more I plug into CAI, the more juice I get back. But that alone is not enough. This communication in the office, huge. Leading by example as a boss, huge. I do not answer my phone except from my assistant or the president nights and weekends. I do not have work email on my phone. So it doesn't beep to me every time an email comes in.
Oh, Bill, you are that's sacrilegious.
I'm a bad boy. And you know what? My board is fine with it. They send me an email. I check my email periodically. And you know what? I was clear on this when they hired me.
Yeah.
I said, guys, these are the expectations. If you want me, this is what I do. In fact, when that guy sued me, he had threatened me. He sued me at a time that I'd had AFib for 2 months. My heart rate was between 140 and 170 for 2 months solid. So I was not in a good emotional place when he sued. And it was the typical thing, you know, hitting you over the head with all these allegations. And guys, I lost it. It was the final straw. I lost it. And I called my management company boss and I called the president of the board and said, I'm forwarding this to you. It's 100% BS. I got all the paperwork, but I can't handle this right now because what's going on with me physically and emotionally. And I need you guys to step in, put him on notice, work with the attorneys and get the ball rolling. And you know what? They did.
And you know what, Bill? That's a big deal that you had that availability to go to your company and get that level of support. Here in Florida, there are still a lot of managers that are self-managed. And when they're self-managed, they have no ability to go and find or hand off for support like that. For example, when my son was shot, I was a self-managed manager for 4 towers with 100+ employees, reporting directly to the board of directors with a hurricane bearing down on Southeast Florida. And so all of this was the perfect storm. And I was working from from hospital bedside in Texas the whole time. And because there was nobody to step in and cover in my absence. And so sometimes that makes it even harder and even more important to have connections in CAI and relationships with people that you can work with and talk to and work through these things or provide you some kind of relief and support. Because the self-managed manager doesn't have a corporate office to hand something off to. They are their own HR.
You know, and that's getting harder and harder as well. Let's move on. We're running out of time a little bit. This slide is meant to say you can create a culture in your office that allows for there not to be a stigma, but you got to lead by example.
Yeah.
These are some basic tools that we talk about in the book. I hate to shamelessly plug the book, but I've been published a lot with CAI around the notion of building community. I was very proud of that. I'm 10 times more proud of this work. Some people opened their souls and told their personal stories. Some managers that don't have these problems but get it wrote some great pieces about how to be an executive that emphasizes this. I'm involved in a spiritual program. I'm in recovery. Like a lot of high-performing folks in my distant past, I had problems with alcohol. I do not anymore. I'm sober.
For
And
years, it was alcohol or cigarettes in this business. You had to have a vice, right? Like that was
well, and
when
it was
you
expected.
let
It was
it go.
expected. Yeah. But, in my daily practice now, I practice gratitude. I watch what I watch before bedtime so that I don't get crazy dreams. I meditate daily. And if you knew me before the rugby playing run through a brick wall guy, you'd be laughing, Bill Overton, oh my God, this is nuts. But meditation every day really helps me. Again, I talk about this with Melissa Ramsey, who does not like meditation. She does other things. She's very active physically with exercise. But I talk about what's going on with me with others. When I had my breakdown, I went to my HR director and told her what was going on. She said, no matter what you do, don't tell the board you're stressed out. I'm drowning. And my own HR director said that to me. We have a lot of work to do to make this something we can talk about.
So
And-
I like the last couple of bullets here, the be your own best friend. So when Bill passed away, my sister would call me every single day to check on me and see how I was doing. And I was in an executive role with a management firm. And I said, I am a hot mess express. And she would say, Leslie, your bad day is better than most normal people's good day. Look at all that you've accomplished in the last 24 hours. You're doing just fine. And with that situation and with that growth of experience, that experiencing grief of a sudden loss, I learned the art of giving myself a moment of grace and sometimes stopping and just saying, you know what, I'm going to breathe. I'm just going to breathe and I'm going to relax and then I'm going to get back to it. But not necessarily always feeling like I have to practically kill myself to keep everything moving.
some simple ideas. Our class that I talked about that one can attend online has a section about how, from a self-care standpoint, movement is a huge deal. I have a tendency to sit at my desk all day long. Even getting up and walking 20 minutes on a treadmill in my office here can break up the day. It helps all these symptoms of burnout. It's like lowering a pressure on a pressure cooker. But again, I encourage everybody to Google self-care is not the answer to burnout, because these things are temporary measures. If you don't, and let's just go through these next slides pretty quickly.
Mhm.
All of this, it lowers your stroke risk, it lowers your blood pressure. It helps you think of things. It gets some of the anxiety out of your system. Maybe you come up with a new idea. I used to do endurance cycling, and some of my best business ideas came to me in the middle of a 3-hour bike ride. Next slide.
This
This
is
is
what makes the difference.
this is a big deal.
Yeah.
And Leslie laughed at me that I have my phone off and I do not get email on my phone. Once I set the expectation, my board does not care. My board is absolutely fine with this. And I told them, I said, guys, do you want me relaxed and making good business decisions from a well-reasoned point of view, or do you want me stressed out and getting a million things done? And we added a new admin because of that. I think one of the things that we struggle with is underpay and understaffing, because boards don't have the balls to raise dues. And I'm sorry if that was a little bit edgy in my comment. Boards do not have the guts to raise dues. The reality of this is you're the professional and we get treated like an admin, especially the ladies. I'm sorry, that's true. I'm coming up on 70 years old. They see me as one of them. My board is that age and they see me as one of them. But you got to earn it. You got to take it. And you got to get it in up front. It's like, well, we'll give you this and we'll talk about a raise later. No. Once you're in, it's inflationary. Same thing with setting boundaries. And you know what? We provide lunch for my security team and my admin team every day. The kitchen over at the club brings lunch. Lunch is sacred around here. You can't interrupt anybody's lunch.
I don't remember the last time I took an actual lunch break. That's one of those things where how many of us sit at our desk and power through and grab a smoothie or a shake or eat at our desk. You are right. That is absolutely important to the group.
Leslie, I would just say everybody's boundaries are different.
Absolutely.
I used to take calls morning, noon, and night. I got a call in my burnout moment situation 2 or 3 months before I walked away. I got a nasty email from one of my volunteers on Christmas Eve. I got family in town. I'm already stressed out like crazy. And she writes me this just nasty gram. And I showed it to my wife. My wife didn't think it was that big a deal, but cumulatively, it was a huge deal for me.
Right.
I tried to set boundaries in that place and failed. One of the reasons I walked away is that I knew it was impossible. And by the way, in the 8 years I've been away, they've had 4 other managers. 3 of them left in less than a year. So sometimes it's not us, guys. Sometimes it's them. And 2 of my best experiences in this business have been when I fired a difficult client. When I fired this client that I'm talking about right now, and when I started writing about mental wellness in the workplace, I was a little worried I was committing career suicide because I'm publishing that I'm crazy.
I started putting it all on LinkedIn too. So it was kind of the same thing. Like I started getting feedback from people telling me things like, LinkedIn isn't a social network, it's for business professional posts. It was a lot of criticism like that, when the reality of it is I was trying to bring awareness to it so that we all felt safer to talk about it.
And those people aren't ready to talk about it yet. And that's
Correct.
okay. One of my bosses gets still really uncomfortable. He supports anything I want to do, but if I try to talk to him about what's going on, he doesn't know how to talk about it. But the
Yeah.
bottom line here, folks, is that as a manager, even, folks are making money all around us. And if I left tomorrow, there would be an eager group of managers in my company that would want to climb over each other to get my job. And 6 months from now, nobody would know the difference. So for me to kill myself literally for a job is not worth it. And setting boundaries as the expert day one and throughout is the key.
Yes, 100%. Here, again, emails. I love this. Emails are not instant messages. I'm a big Teams chatter. So within my company, I like to see us Teams message each other rather than emailing. Because Teams is a more instant, quick answer, and you don't have to worry about all the good morning, so and so. Can you please send me this? You can just be like, I need da 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 da. And we can help each other and respond more efficiently to each other and have a conversation, as opposed to bogging down our emails. How many of us get hundreds of emails a week and our emails are just bogged down with thank you and absolutely happy to help, and things that just clutter up our boxes and make our lives more difficult. The other thing I do as a boundary with my team, Bill, is I tell my team that if they need to talk to me, they should text me, do I have a moment? And then I'll say, not now, but I will at blank time.
Well,
And if,
and they need to say maybe, and it's important because
well,
I have ADHD. If you get on my radar screen, you got my full attention. But what you're talking about is just people need to get on your radar screen.
well, but if it's an emergency, fire, life, fire, flood, blood, right? You call. And if my phone rings, I do not care what meeting I'm in the middle of. If I have an employee that is calling me without a preemptive text message, then I know I need to answer the phone. And I've had some I've had a manager have a heart attack on the property and get taken off the property by the ambulance. I've had those types of phone calls. And I answered that phone. And that helps to build the trust and the availability that we talked about that your team needs from the leadership, because it is something that they'll understand. But the messages here about text messages even. So I use Ring Central, and I've activated my Ring Central now to be able to allow texting, so that most of the employees, if not all, shouldn't be using their direct cell phone number to call people, and they can send and receive text messages from the business line, which allows them to not feel the sense of urgency to respond after hours. Because that is a big problem. Board members, I had a board member once on a Saturday night send me a text message. I'm the owner of the management company, saying, please send an email blast out about Mahjong on Sunday, on Monday. And I was like, yeah, no, like, so yeah, that's a definite, you can use some technology to help to set that boundary for you.
Okay, we used the whole hour. Leslie and I both love to speak on this topic and probably on any topic around our industry in general.
We
It's
just
one of the
talk.
things I love about Leslie. Anybody want to drop a question into the comments?
Well, one person said they didn't know what this thing was that we called lunch.
Yeah, I thought
Wow.
that was funny.
Uh-huh.
I did this presentation with Deborah Warren a while back for CAI. She asked me, what's the one non-negotiable spiritual practice for me that helps me? And I would have to say at the end of the day, it's meditation. Meditation is a wild thing. If you learn how to do it, you can find that place in just a few seconds, or you can meditate for 5 or 10 minutes.
So I'll
It
tell
makes
you what made a difference for me in the last year. I already had a little dog. Her name was Coco Chanel. Anybody that follows me knows about Coco. She's the best little property inspector ever. She'll sniff out any violations. And she loves to do Zoom meetings. She's sitting on my lap right now. And so last year I actually adopted a new golden doodle from a rescue. And she, since I work from home largely, she wasn't potty trained indoors. She was a breeder release, and she needed to go out multiple times a day. So she is the reason I remember to get up from my desk and get out and walk and go do something else that helps to bring joy to my life. I focused really heavily on finding things that bring joy and looking for for those tasks along the way. Oh, Marie says we can't see her. Well, she's kind of halfway asleep, but let's see. Here's little Miss Coco. She's a good little zoomer. She's a good girl. The other one's behind me asleep.
You got to always have a puppy.
Yeah. I always thought the emotional support animals, were, BS, but hey, you know what? Tori is my ESA for sure. She gives
I
me
have a
all the love and
rescue.
support.
I have a rescue multi-poo. Same
Yeah.
exact thing. Found her on the street. Never the type of dog I said I'd never have. First
Yeah.
dog. Listen, you guys, there is no definitive bottom line on any of this stuff. What we really want you to do is to take care of yourself and know that that's okay. I'm going to put my phone number in the chat. If anybody wants to call me, ever, I'd rather have you call me. Whoops, didn't get the number right. I'd rather have you call me.
Write that one down.
Stop it. That one's the right one. But you need people to talk
A
to.
lot of 8s, 6s, and 5s.
I know, man. That's a great
I think we
poker
could sing a
hand.
song to that, like 8-5-8-8-8-6-6-5-5.
I think that's done already, but I get it. The reality of this is find somebody to talk to, take a class, change your culture. Culture is low-hanging fruit. And I think you'd be more happy, but also more profitable, more cost efficient with some of the things we're talking about today.
Absolutely. I'll put mine in there too, because I don't want to be outdone by Bill. Again,
Never happened, Leslie.
we're all here to help and support. We've all been there, done that. What our experiences might not be exactly the same, but this is a special world that we work in, and we can all help each other along the way. That's the goal here.
Y'all are lucky to have Leslie out there in Florida. Let's just say that.
Scott?
Yeah, we want to thank Leslie and Bill for being available and willing to present today's program. You guys are quickly becoming good friends of our chapter. Bill, we used one of your articles last year in a program we did, Mindful Maintenance, which was an all-day mental health program, and we greatly appreciate you allowing us to use that article. And for those of you who were at the January breakfast, you recognize Leslie as presenting her CEU class, Real World Time Management for Community Managers. So we look forward to continuing building the relationship with both of you. And thank you again so much for your time. If anybody leaves the program today and says, oh, I forgot to get Leslie or Bill's contact information, reach out to me directly and I'll make sure that I can put you in touch.
You can also share these slides with anybody that wants them.
And this program itself, for those of you who don't know, CAI Florida has its own YouTube channel. So we'll be editing this video itself to make it look a little bit more like a professional webinar, at least from the chapter side. We know that our speakers absolutely did that part. So we'll clean it up a little bit and make it available to review on your own time.
Wow, almost like a podcast.
There you go. Wave of the future.
Not quite.
Although Bill, I will
Hashtag
send
Leslie
you,
Alvarez.
Bill, I'll send you the copy on VHS when available.
Yeah. Sounds like a plan.
Thank you
all
guys.
so much.
Thank you so much for having us. We really enjoyed sharing the conversation, and it's, it's just awesome to help support others out there in the industry. Thank you.
Thank you again. We really appreciate your time. Everybody, thank you for being a part of today's program. And again, if you have any follow-up questions for our speakers and don't have a chance to get their contact information, reach out to me directly. Otherwise, we'll see you at the next chapter event. Thank you.